So welcome everybody. Theo Ford-Stiegler here with Nexus for Change and the doctoral program in organization development and change at Bowling Green State University. We are gathered for our last session of Change 2023, a series of gatherings with both hybrid and online options that we've been pursuing for about a month now. I am absolutely thrilled to have with me today three folks that I think of as thought leaders in this space of what we're talking about, specifically today, the art of human interaction, but also just in how people can be better together, which really to me is part of the vision that I carry deeply in my heart for our world. And so I'm excited to introduce you to Rianna Moore, who is an author and thought leader. It so happens that all three of the folks, Rianna Moore and Rosa Zubizarreta and Todd Siler, are authors of the Collaborative Change Library. Many of you probably are aware that that is one of the focal points of Steve Cady's work and my work with him, both at the university and at Nexus for Change. And so that's how I've gotten to meet all three of them. And they will share with us a bit about their individual work, their individual story as to how they've gotten to being in this work and what the impact or impacts are that they're looking to make. And as some of you were joining, we had a bit of a conversation around who should go first and who should go last. And we sort of settled on Rianna getting to go first. So Rianna, I'm gonna hand it to you and yeah, share with us what it is that brought you here today and what it is that you do, and yeah, what the inspirations and nuggets might be for the rest of us.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Theo, and good morning, everyone. I don't know where you are on the planet, so maybe I should be saying good afternoon, good evening, good middle of the night. Try to be inclusive in the way that I share a greeting and show up. For me, it's morning. It's 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Eastern Seaboard, U.S. I identify as a white cisgendered woman. I think it's important to start out anything that I share with folks to kind of share my social location, social identities. That's not all of them, but those three are figural. What I decided to talk, what I'm interested in is I'm a specialist. I use my whiteness to undo white supremacy in different systems that I get to intervene in. And that's really my primary focus of all the work I do these days. It has been for several years. The larger interest is in relationships and how to keep relationships healthy and how to heal and repair broken relationships. And that's what my focus is on today, on two things. One is called intent, the other is impact. What's my intention going into any relationship, any exchange I might be having with someone, and what is my actual impact? So I have a few slides I want to share on that. And Theo, I think I'm going to need you to kind of walk me through the process of getting the PowerPoints up again. Oh, here they are. They're right there. Let's see if this works. Whoa, there they are. Okay, so the real title is whoa, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant to say. That's not how I wanted you to feel, and so forth. So intent versus impact, and a couple of definitions. So intent or intention is what I intend or hope to get across to the other person in any interaction that I'm having with that person, or in a group that I may be in front of, like this one. Like, so what's my intention? How am I coming in? What do I hope to create in terms of content and feeling tone? And I want to say one more thing about intentions. I believe that most of us, and not even just 80%, but I think most people in most relationships really want to have positive intentions in any interaction that they have. And there's that old saw going on now that I hear a lot in groups, which is, and it's sort of, my sense is, speaking as a white person, it's often focused on people of color. Assume good intentions. In other words, assume that the white people, the white folks who are present, don't really mean to commit all of these microaggressions that they're committing on a minute by minute basis. You know, they just don't know, or they don't understand, but they really, you know, they're good folks, and just try to ignore how hurt you are, how injured you are. On the other side is impact. So whatever my good intentions are, then there's the impact that I have in terms of how my communication actually lands on the other person. My very, very simple definition of interpersonal effectiveness is when intent and impact align. So if I'm in a communication with you, some kind of communication process, and the way that I impact you is actually aligned with what I hoped for and intended, then I've been effective. So if I say to my partner, I love you, and he feels that, he feels the love, you know, just to use a simple process, simple example, then I've been effective. If my nonverbals contradict that, then we have things we need to talk about. So, yeah, here's the rub. Actually, there's two rubs, so I put rubs, plural. Number one, impact can be quite different from intent, especially across the social cultural divide. Men, women, people of color, white people, hearing impaired people. I mean, the list goes on ad infinitum in terms of dimensions of diversity that are possible. Muslim and Christian. It just goes on and on and on. The thing is that on any given dimension of diversity, where there are differentiated social power dynamics, then there's differential impact. And we have different cultures. Different cultures grow up around those differences. So speaking for me as a cisgendered white woman, I can have one intention in an interaction, let's say with a person of color, but my impact can be very different. So that's like a truism. And the second truism that is relevant here is we judge others by our intentions. We judge ourselves by our intentions, and others by their impact. So the title slide said, whoa, that's not what I meant. When I say that, I'm going right to my intention, and I'm not paying attention to what my impact is being on the other person. But when someone else is impacting me in a way, a microaggression of some kind or a macroaggression, I judge the person who committed that around their impact. I don't say to myself automatically, oh, they have good intentions. I'm sure they have good intentions. They just ran over my foot, but you know, they didn't mean to. That actually happened to me once. Okay, so do relational skills matter? Well, there's all kinds of research, tons of research that says that relational skills matter. And here's one data point. 71% of employers value interpersonal skills more than technical skills when evaluating candidates, whether that's for promotion, internal promotion, or hiring, or you know, whatever it might be. So what's the pathway? There is a pathway, I believe. This just comes out of my, I don't know, 35 plus years of doing OD consulting at the system level. But one of the systems that operates is the individual in relation to another individual, or an individual in a group or a team. So what do you do when a relationship has been strained, is under a lot of tension, or is even at the point of having broken? But these two people need to work together, or they really want to repair the relationship. Maybe it's a marriage, maybe it's a child. You know, how do you go about doing that around this intention and impact thing? So the first thing is you need to have a desire to repair, restore, or revive the relationship, bring life back to it somehow, re-infuse it with life. Is it possible to do that? Sometimes relationships are irretrievably broken, and the person needs to move on, or whatever, or even worse consequences, like at the group or intergroup level. You can think right now, we can think of any number of examples going on around the world where intergroup level relationships, power dynamics, look like, to me personally, I'll just say, like they're irretrievably broken. But are they really? I mean, I have friends in the Middle East, one Palestinian, one Israeli, two men who are quite a bit younger than I am. And they are, they're both working for an organization called Peacemakers. And they go around trying to do this work, which seems phenomenal to me. Anyway, we need to have the sincere desire to repair, restore, revive. And then the second thing is to, what does that word say?
Yeah.
Heal, thanks. A desire to heal the relationship. The relationship is important to us for some reason. The other person is important. And we realize that we have hurt them, harmed them, injured them in some way, and we really want to heal it. And we also, if the relationship is in decent repair, but we need it to be more robust, then we want to develop the relationship and maintain it in whatever strengths it has. And maybe we even want to deepen and strengthen it and make it more robust, which is, I hope you all appreciate the new word I've made up. I think it'll appear in Merriam's in about 5 years, robustify, make it more robust. So how do we do that? Here's the how-to. This is the money slide, okay? Like, what are the behaviors that are involved? And we'll just go through these one by one. So the first thing,
Rianna, can you do me a favor? Can you,
yeah.
On the bottom of your screen is a little, looks like a projector or a screen, a really small icon next to that Zoom slider. Go to the right just a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, now I lost it. I was hoping to maybe get your slide to go full screen, but for some reason there we go. Can you on the very bottom, next to the Zoom left and right thing? Oh, I don't know. Never mind. Moving on. Oh, press F11, says Ryan, would be an option. If you have an F11, that might get you full screen.
Here I do. Now I'm gonna get really close to my screen to see it because my okay, F11
on your keyboard.
Yep. It's so tiny.
If not, don't worry about it.
You can't quite. Let's try this.
We just want to see that text.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I just pressed F11, but nothing happened. So
I can blow them up here on my screen. I might read them out for you as you go along.
Okay, so I should just go ahead and read them and talk about them, and then okay. All right. Sorry, folks. I apologize for my own technical ineptitude. I'm one of those people that I focus more on the affective side of being. So the first thing is to use whatever practices you use to center and ground yourself so you can be fully present in the here and now for focusing on your impact, which is the other person's experience. And very, very key here is to let go of control. So I want to speak again as a white person. This may be true in every culture, but I think it's sort of amped up in white culture, is we really want to control everything possible. But if you think of the serenity prayer, it's like, accept the things I cannot control and the courage to change the things I can. Well, what I've learned from my experience in 12-step is the only thing I can really change or control is myself, and I have to work a lot to make that happen. But I can't, to the extent that I try to control others, I just get myself in a lot of trouble and I damage relationships. So I need to center and ground and let go of control and just like get myself really fully present in the here and now. And sometimes in a matter of 2 seconds, like when someone says, Rianna, I need to talk to you about something that happened between us, and I need to share my impact because I can't get past it. This actually just happened to me a week ago with a friend who has been a friend for about 15 years, very close friendship actually. And she has been hanging on to this for about 7 or 8 months and been trying to talk herself out of feeling hurt, because she trusts my intentions. She knows I have good intentions, but she was still hurt. So the relationship was damaged, and it's a very important relationship. So I had to boom, I had to go there immediately. And it's big inner work for those of you who are familiar with this process. Second thing is, get yourself into a place of gratitude. Be grateful and feel grateful, and then express gratitude to the other person for their gift. They're illuminating something that's in your blind spot. So if those of you who are familiar with Joe Hari window, one of the quadrants in that model is the blind spot. That's all the stuff about us that we literally can't see. And the only way we know what's in the blind spot is if other people say, hey, I'm not sure you're aware of this. You have spinach in your teeth. It's kind of the classic example, but that's the kind of thing. Rianna, I don't think you intended to have this impact, but this is the impact you had, and I really want you to know it and pay attention to it. Third is to self-regulate, in the sense of the second key element of emotional intelligence is self-regulation. So to regulate myself around whatever stew of emotional stew, or however much my amygdala has been triggered, and I'm just being flooded with anxiety and defensiveness. That's a lot of inner work as well, is to self-regulate, especially around our defensiveness, while focusing on the impact. And you might even need to say, and I've done this, just an example, wow, I'm feeling defensive right now, but I want to keep my focus on what you're telling me about my impact. I really want to understand. But just be aware, if I'm looking weird, it's because I'm managing some defensiveness, but I really want to be present to this. Then next is another behavior is to paraphrase what you've heard. What I'm hearing you say is, points 1, 2, and 3. Did I get it right? What am I missing? This is a vulnerable place, because another aspect of white Western culture is perfectionism. Perfectionism is also a defense against, it's like a belief in our own, as kids, some of us, if we believe if we can just get it perfect, maybe we won't be punished. So it can go very deep, the roots of perfectionism. Next is acknowledge the affective content, which is the feelings, the emotions, the body sensations. Feel it empathically if you can. Teo, I'm just going to use you, Teo, because this was not an interaction that Teo and I had, but I might say, Teo, I noticed while you were sharing with me what my impact was, that you were kind of fidgeting and using a lot of hand gestures, and it was hard for you to make eye contact with me. And I just wonder maybe if it was like it really made you nervous to be sharing this with me. And I wonder what's going on for you right now. Feeling tone is, it's like 90+% of what's important in any interpersonal communication. And there's a lot of research on that as well. Acknowledge the importance of relationship. Teo, we're early in our relationship, but it's important to me for several reasons. I'm not sure you're aware of why it's important to me, so let me share that. And that's why I wanted to just be as present as I could be here for our conversation. Express your own emotions. So I'm aware that I'm feeling anxious. My heart rate is up. My palms are sweating a little bit. And that's all because this is so important to me. And then once you've done all of that and allowing the other person to express themselves while you're going through this, then again, let go of control and remain fully present for what may come next. Thank you. And that's me. I hope that was 7 minutes. I'm done.
Thank you, Rianna. Are you willing to share these slides with the group afterwards?
Of course.
Awesome. So look for a follow-up message, folks, with the recording and those slides. I'm going to hand it over next to my art scientist friend Todd. That connection to me personally is really important. So Todd, over to you. And you're on. Gotta ask you to unmute, please. There you are.
It's fantastic to be here, and it's very special hearing these presentations. It's interesting that because we're so visual, many of us, and we are used to, showing what we do. I would frame what I do as just imagine being an artist your whole life, working with many different mediums to express yourself, to communicate concepts in science and technology and humanity and all that. And building a program over many years that integrates the arts and sciences. I call it art science. And I took this program from work I was doing over many, many years when I would show my work in art museums and things, and apply it to education, it became something that grew not simply from the education field, but grew out into business and industry and so forth through collaborative projects that I was doing. I will show you some slides of it, but just to set the context. So you have to picture visual artist, multimedia artist, working and showing things in art museums and saying, you know what, I have to take this out into other fields to actually apply the arts to help people understand how core the arts are to connecting everything and everyone. And so I think you'll find, Rianna, when I talk about the process that I use to do this, I think you'll see how it applies to this intent, impact, and having an alignment there so that people effectively understand your thoughts, feelings, emotions, ideas, and you kind of are helping each other see what is very tough to see when people are only using words, or only as a mathematician using, one of 11 intelligences that we have, if you want to frame it in Howard Gardner spin. So this work grew out of the work I was doing at MIT, where I was building all kinds of symbolic models to help people invent, innovate, and communicate, and kind of get to the essence of what they were thinking. You can't read people's minds. You can't even kind of get a sense of where their mental models are, what their intentions are, what their feelings are, even when they are, first off, because I work in many, many worlds, and not just because of the different ways that people represent their ideas and information, but because, in fact, we have so many different languages that we're processing and from so many different cultures. And so this became, for me, what I will show you, a kind of global common language to enable people, regardless of their background, regardless of their education, social, economic background, or cultural background, could communicate with one another, where the arts actually enable that communication and where the sciences actually help you understand what you were communicating. So my background, just to give you one more layer of information, is really from art history, the biological sciences, study in sciences. And in fact, the work I do is really a synthesis of these things, putting this together and making this confluence happen to build these models. And Carol Gorlick knows ahead of how this has been applied in industries with folks we have used this. But the point of the process and the practice of applying what I call this art science, what grew to in almost a discovery process for me as it was practiced in industry and businesses and schools and cultures and so forth, was a way that people could really share at a very deep level what they were thinking, feeling, emoting, what they were envisioning, and that they didn't have words for. So let me throw a couple slides up and I'll try to frame it. It's quite layered. Here, let's see, do you want to, there you go. And if you can shrink it a little bit so that you can kind of see the range of things. Basically, I have, when I do facilitated work, as I explained, I got only to a point where when I would do my art exhibitions and you're in the museums, you have very little interaction with most of the audience and people who will come visit a show. So I wanted to take out a process that would enable people not necessarily to make art, but to express themselves and use the range of symbolic modeling tools that we have available, both hands-on, minds-on, now certainly with all the different media we have. But I have them work on a challenge that they want, and it can be on any subject. It could be on building strategic plans. It could be on personal growth. It could be on any number of challenges that we have, both daily and that are both individual and collaborative. And I would have them build these multidimensional symbolic models using words, images, objects, music, anything and anything that they wanted to cobble together to express the essence of an idea, a goal, a plan, all of the different things that might go under, and you might think of when we talk about innovative thinking and certainly collaborative learning. So this process really was arts-based, and it was science-based, and it was all experiential learning, because I found, in the course of the work I do, almost like Galileo hit it on the head. You can't teach people anything. They have to discover it within themselves. And so this is about setting the conditions for the magic to happen. They make the magic, and you help them understand how to apply that and what they learn through it. So basically, and you can see from the bottom corner of that slide, there are a bunch of venture capitalists who are building technology companies. And there is a very famous scientist that we know that was very experiential in the way he approached learning about the world. That's Richard Feynman, who used drumming, used many different kinds of media to help communicate and do science visualization in a demonstrative way that was emotionally engaging. And across the board, the chemist up on the top, and who is communicating with groups of people who weren't chemists. They were coming from many fields, writers, and they were historians. They were all kinds of people. And when they were asked to make a model about their creative process, how they see, like in the metacognition, how they see their own creative process, or what they prioritize that was important to them for their passions and interests, they build these models. I'd have them build these models and then talk about them, and then make a goal and kind of a roadmap to something they wanted to achieve based on what they learned from the models. Well, what I found is that whether I was working with children, or whether I was working in a school K through 12, or whether I was working with a multinational company with senior execs, they were able to do and use these models in the most powerful way about understanding their intentions, understanding literally what they wanted to achieve together and how to achieve it together, and to do it in a way that was so fluid and organic and intuitive. When you see the videos, I have hundreds of videos and documented over 30 some odd years or more of these interactions. Very appropriate for the title of this talk, right? About the art of human interactions. It really was about the art science of it, about literally this magical, this wonderful release of divergent and convergent thinking that allowed people to understand what another individual was trying to communicate to them. And so the models that they build are a way to have a line of sight to things that we don't really are not able to actually, hook our minds to unless we, or wrap our minds around until we actually see what someone is saying. And interesting, the title of your talk about, whoa, that's not what I meant. What's interesting in this is they get to actually talk through what they do mean through these symbolic models, and to describe it, and to have language around it. Like, for example, the business leaders here who are very, very very time sensitive how they're going to use their resources and funds and so forth. They get to a point where after they're done scoping out a concept, as an example, if we do a slide, the next slide, Theo, might kind of illustrate this. Here are a bunch of thought leaders who are building the future of telecommunication systems. They're very, very successful folks, very diverse, and they're trying to work together collaboratively, how they're going to actually envision building what the future could actually be based on their knowledge, and their experiences. And so they build these things, and it enables them, each of them, to understand, have a hand in the process of envisioning it, and have a hand in unpacking it, explaining it to one another, and then getting closure of what those different symbolic structures mean and how it can be translated into real world actions and impacts. So I have tons of stories, individual stories to share rather than just describing to you. Some are quite wonderful. And I kind of got drafted into this whole process when I had my studio in Denver, where I'm based now. And we had people from the business community. I had published a book called Think Like a Genius, and it was really about understanding that genius is everywhere, every day, in everyone, in every way imaginable. And I say that based on the experiences I had looking at what kids do, what people from many different fields do, whether they are educated as regard in a formal terminal degrees or not. Their ability to cobble together and express and give form to their ideas and express them brilliantly through these systems. That was, what I looked at. I looked at that ability to think, create, perform at their highest level, and understand. I won't give you my spin on this. I studied, in the field of brain science and psychology. That's what part of my background was. If anybody wants to read any of the articles and things that this work is based on, I'm happy to share it with you. But the essence of, if you want to go to the next slide, Theo, the essence is to see that pretty much you can use anything in your environment to give to, in this process of giving form to your thoughts, making them visible, tangible, touchable for others to understand. And I had worked for many, many years and continue to work with him, a fellow named Harvey Seifter, who has the art of science learning. And I want to call your attention to that work, because in fact, it really is about learning and understanding various concepts that we have to be aware of and understand in order to, build a world that would enable us to improve human communication at a very deep level, and through the very facets that we have when we're trying to share knowledge, create and share knowledge across many fields. If you go to another slide, and we had done work over some years on building these innovation incubators that were enabling people to really use their skills and ways of envisioning things to actually solve challenges. Now, I also worked for years, long before this, with my older brother, Eric Siler, who was instrumental in pulling together the resources and enabling me to build these programs out with a team that were taken into the schools, that were, used in very versatile ways, with a program that dealt with everything from helping youth at risk to building programs to teach core curriculum through STEAM and other kinds of things. So if you go to the next slide, just, we're skipping over years and years and decades of work. So Rosa, I see you smiling, so I'll be quick about this. I'll wind this up I think there may be one last slide there. I had interaction slides and would happy to send you to links that you can actually see these things in motion. If there's no other slide, I can.
That's the last one I had.
Okay. Let me just tell you a short story how I got drafted into this. I was working on my art projects, and one of the people from US West we have here, the telecoms, had come to the studio and heard about the process I described in the Think Like a Genius book. And they were working on the first of a kind global village, the intranet that served, Carol's laughing as she knows, Sherman Wu was really the architect. It was really amazing. They came because they had various challenges that were going on in the company that they needed solved. And so they had heard about this process I wrote about, so let's give it a whirl. They wanted to, I was shown a histogram. Can you help compress the learning curve, right? Because they had to solve some very, very serious challenges. And so imagine bringing 4 levels of, from the senior execs down to the phone installers, who are all doing the blame game. They're, why aren't we getting this done? We're losing massive revenue and all of this. And so they kind of threw me in like Briar Rabbit into the, to the patch, what happened and what blew out of that, what mushroomed out of that was just tons of work with, Fortune 500 companies, technology startups, that wanted to use this on it. And it really was something so fundamental to us. It was about a process I call metaforming that you saw, little glimpses of, about taking all information and understanding how to connect it, that the information being data, knowledge, wisdom, experiences, worldviews, all of it, and understanding how to make it deeply personal, relevant, productive, and useful to you. And in doing that, you're kind of tapping your full creative potential in the process of doing that. And so I just gave you really a jet ski pass right over a glimpse here, a little, detail, small, about this. And the applications literally have been from A to Z, and used in many places in the world. And it has grown into something that, frankly, I want to use it at Camp David. I want to use it. My dream is to use it with G70 and G70 by the time we're done with everything. So I am torn between my art career that had to be kept simultaneously and the applications of these very, very powerful tools. I will leave it up to Rosa to hand the baton off and tell your story.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Rianna. I would like to, if I may, start with a moment of silence. So I was really happy hearing Rianna's presentation, because so much of what she was saying is what I first fell in love with when I encountered a form of group facilitation that uses a lot of reflection, paraphrasing, acknowledging effective content, works with emotions, etc. And so it just is such a wonderful thing to build on, because what I had written here when I had taken a few notes to prepare my story is that I first fell in love with group facilitation when I discovered that there is an art to creating inclusive spaces that draw out the best in people and that welcomes people into being authentic and co-creative together, even in situations where there are significant differences, like you mentioned, Rianna, in terms of the really intense situation in Palestine and Israel right now. This was not planned, but I do have a link I can share afterwards. I've been collecting inspiring stories of people reaching across divides right now, because I think we all need moments of inspiration. So I'm happy to share that with you, afterward. So initially, my passion was for learning and practicing this art of like creative group facilitation and for deepening my own learning. I went back to school for a master's degree in OD. I graduated in 2002. And then at some point, I also began teaching advanced group facilitation as I discovered how satisfying it was to help other people learn how to do this too. And then through my extended community of practice, I began hearing about the work of some facilitators in Austria, which is where, this work had spread, who were applying their art in the context of supporting very diverse groups of community members to explore public issues together and to arrive at shared policy recommendations. And as someone whose first identification was as an activist, I've been a bilingual classroom teacher, I've been an environmental activist, I've supported Indigenous rights. This bringing people together to come up, very diverse, intentionally diverse microcosms of people to come up with shared public policy recommendations just really spoke to me. And so I became very curious to learn more about the work of these facilitators. And eventually this led to me becoming a researcher. So this, and it still continues to inspire my work at present, because helping human beings with very different perspectives interact together on political issues in a way that participants actually enjoy. So I really see this as an art worth studying and as a story worth sharing. So in 2014, I embarked upon what turned out to be a very long journey of becoming a PhD and completed my degree in April of this year. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, it was a long haul. So in the meantime, this practice of inviting very diverse community members to work together as a group and arrived at shared public policy recommendations has continued to grow around the world. The OECD published a report on this in 2020. There's, lots of magazine articles these days. Sometimes these processes are called citizens' assemblies. Smaller ones are called citizens' juries, panels, or councils. But regardless, participants are chosen by a public lottery. So kind of like a jury. That's kind of the closest thing we have in this country. And they're stratified to make sure that their makeup reflects the makeup of the larger whole, right? And what we see over and over and over again is that regardless, and I mean, I'm a process geek, so I can talk differences between methods, for hours and hours, but what we see is that regardless of the particular methods that are used in these facilitated groups, participants really appreciate the experience of interacting with one another in respectful ways as they work together constructively on issues that affect all of us. People really care about politics, if we understand politics as creating a shared future together. What they don't like is the incredible antagonism that is created in our win-lose politics, right? So other things do vary. Whether the recommendations of these mini publics are implemented or not varies quite a bit, as most OD people might imagine, on factors such as the prior relationships and the shared understandings that have been built between the organizers of this process and the sponsoring political office holders or public administrators. But the ability of a diverse group of regular people to come together and to come up with sound policy recommendations given supportive conditions, and how much they value and enjoy the opportunity to do so. This has been a very consistent finding in this field, sometimes called deliberative democracy or democratic innovation. So what I found as a facilitation practitioner who is now also a qualitative researcher is that I deeply appreciate the opportunity to conduct interviews with the people who carry out this work. Because whenever someone is in the role of facilitator, their role is to listen well to everybody in the group, to make sure others' voices are heard, to help participants' contributions be welcomed and understood. Yet they're not really putting their own voice out, right? However, in my research, I've found the enormous value of listening to facilitators' voices. As a society, I feel we really need to listen to learn from people who know how to listen deeply and who know how to bring out the best in others, as Rianna was detailing for us in terms of interpersonal interaction. This can also happen in a group when some of the very similar steps are used in a group context. And art is wonderful. I would love to bring more art into the work that I do, but the art is in the heart of listening deeply and doing something that I call taking all sides. Sometimes in family therapy, it's been called multi-directional partiality, you know, but it really means understanding that each person has a bit of the truth. So I just want to briefly, if I may, share 3 quotes from facilitators in my research. The first one has to do with the shift from what Herb Shepard called primary consciousness, which is a zero-sum game, to secondary consciousness, which is a sense of a win-win game. Now, my teacher was a student of Herb, so he's definitely part of my lineage. I really appreciate his work. I just think that he got it a little bit backward, because win-win, I feel, is the primary framework that we're all born with, and that the zero sum is conditioned into us by an economic system of scarcity and competition that shapes our culture. But that's just my little editorial piece there, because I do think we need to decolonialize, right? And so part of that is changing our thinking. So anyway, but here's the quote. As a facilitator, the role is only to help them accept that there is more than one reality out there, and that you can be right without the others being wrong. Something like this. And that there are solutions out there which don't necessarily have to be bad for you if they are good for others. Something like that. So there's a way how your needs can be met and everybody else's needs can be met. And as facilitator, the only thing you have to do for that is to appreciate everybody and just help them listen to each other. And that's not such a hard task, actually. It's just a challenge to get into the state in the beginning. Sometimes people get impatient. So that's the first quote. The second one has to do with listening, and it's very much along the lines of what Rianna was talking about. In some mediation circles today, it's called looping. You'll be seeing a lot of articles in the work of bridging challenging conflict that talks about looping, old wine, new skins. It goes back to Carl Rogers, who learned it from Jesse Taft, et cetera, how helpful it can be for us to be able to see and hear ourselves when someone mirrors back with kindness and authenticity what they are hearing and seeing. Yeah. So here's the quote. This is from a facilitator who told us how she, because I used backup translators for this. Most of the facilitators did speak English a bit. So she says, seeing a big rock while walking in the forest, thinking that rock is me in my role as a facilitator. I can offer this resonance rock. She talked about the echoes, how when you say it, it'll echo back, where individual people can reflect themselves. When he or she speaks, I write it down, and so they hear their own sound back. And the whole group, they can hear the different sounds. And suddenly, they can hear the music. And this is, for me, the moment of emergence when the group can hear the music. So, third quote, parallel process as organizational consultants. We know that what is modeled in one part of the system is often echoed in another part. So how a facilitator listens to participants becomes a strong influence to how participants listen to one another. And we can hear this in the following quote. I think the way people behave in groups, and a group as an organism that develops, is very much connected to your own vision as a facilitator of what could happen. So for me, if I go into a group and I really feel this makes sense, what we're doing here, then I can also look at people who normally are a struggle for me, because I'm a person as well. And of course, I react to different personalities in different ways. But then I can see that behind every cynicism, behind every fighting, behind every criticism, whatever, there is a serious need which has to be understood, which I have to understand. And then when I go into groups with that orientation, then people in groups can respond in a human way. They can then show themselves, come out from behind this cynicism. Thank you.
Feels appropriate that you started with a moment of silence and that we should have one after that profound statement. We have 5 minutes to the top of the hour. Appreciate you all being here. I just want to invite us all to let that settle for a moment. And then since we are, I think, a small enough group with 4 of us being the hosts, would you be willing to, those of you that are here as participants, as those receiving our sharing, would you be willing to give one sentence as to what you're taking away, and use our last couple of minutes together just to give us a glimpse on what resonated with you loudest in a sentence or two? And I'm going to call on one of you and then ask that you identify the next person on your screen that hasn't gone yet. I'm going to ask Carol to start.
That was cruel, knowing that I always go last, but there's no question. The combination of Rianna's intention and impact that carried through all 3 talks. Oh, I have to call.
Who should go next? Yeah, call on the next guy. Okay.
If you're on.
Well, we've talked in all of our circles of studying human behavior in organizations about potential. But what I heard today is that a potential that perhaps we haven't used effectively, perhaps ever, is to listen deeply to ourselves, being with others, and finding new ground. And that potential has always been there. And I think perhaps this change series and this conversation today is an invitation to potential.
Who should go next, Dave?
Oh, well, I was so brilliant. Why listen to anyone else? and shy. Anna Marie.
Okay, thank you, Dave. What I am taking away from this, and it was all really great, at least from my perspective, thinking about a way that we can have a creative collaborative process that is very inclusive. And I know that sounds like things that we all have really heard, but again, getting into that, listening deeply to yourself, but also listening deeply to others, and bringing our creative side into collaboration with others to create change, or just even create pathways for conversation that maybe we might be scared to have. So that was what I was taking away from it. I'll call on Leah.
Thank you. Well, there's so many different takeaways from each speaker. I kind of did a creative thing. I said robustifying metamorphism in the Resonance Rock. And that was just kind of a funny thing. I like how there's so many different languages for collaboration, different ways to get people engaged, to innovate. And I think it's really interesting the creative ways that all three speakers got people to engage, and then also to do it with so much heart.
Who next, Leo?
How about Aaron?
Thanks. I'll keep it short. I'd like to quote the great Buckaroo Banzai, who said, "No matter where you go, there you are." And I think it's important to realize that, just the role that we play, and the more that we are cognizant of what we bring to an engagement, the better equipped we are to improve ourselves or adapt or modify it to have the most beneficial impact in those dynamics. And I will go to Ryan.
Thank you, Aaron. So much beauty shared today. I synthesized what was presented and shared was to be present and let go while listening for impact, so you can hear the music and make art together.
Mm.
Good one.
I'm going to pick on Amy next.
Wow, can't get away with anything here. Well, there was something profound in each presentation, and I really am glad I came. Rianna's point that we approach interactions from our intentions and others do so from their impact was something that's still resonating for me, and I'm sure I'll be taking that long into the future. And Todd, I just wanted more because of that whole place of communicating from through art, through our creative force is so powerful. I mean, that's as an artist myself, I know that art is a language that transcends conflict, and that is a something we need. We need that language. And Rosa always touches my heart. Rosa goes right to the essence, the core. Her words about, first of all, starting with the silence, of course, and then her words on what's at the heart of each of the change processes that we all know and love. There are so many of them, and that there's something core to all of them that is that feeds their power, feeds their effectiveness. So it was, all in all, it was just plenty to take away. So thank you so much. And I will pass to Aaron.
I think Aaron went already. So
Oh, I'm
I
so
know we're
sorry.
past it. That's no problem. I think we're past the top of the hour, but I'd love to hear from David, Nathan, and Tio if we still can, those of you that are able to hang on.
Thanks, Teo.
Absolutely. David, will you go next?
Sure, I will. I have facilitated problem-solving teams hundreds of times, and what I always realize is how damn difficult it is to do this in real time. You can think it ahead of time, you can practice in your mind. When it comes down to it, the conflict arises and you have to deal with it. I'd love to see someone write a video game that would train us to do this in real time. That's it.
Yes. Tio, can you go next?
Nathan.
Yeah,
Nathan.
me next. As a visual artist myself, excuse me, just taking away a different perspective on my non-visual communication and non-artistic work, and a way to view that more artfully, right? Especially when it comes to like connecting with other people. I resonated a lot with what Rosa said about how art is kind of about recognizing truths in everybody's perspective, right? And so ways to think about just regular old communication in the same kind of way that I think about artistic visual communication. So connecting synapses there.
Theo, can you share? If not, I will just, and please interrupt me, Theo, if you're just looking for the mute button. But just my gratitude to Rianna and Todd and Rosa. I feel blessed that I am able to gather you here and that we have an opportunity to share this. There will be, all of you that registered will be sharing the recording and the slides that I can gather. Thank you so much for your time on this Thursday, and more to come from Nexus and PGSU very soon. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Theo. Another well done session.
Yes, thank you, Theo. Thank you, Todd.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Theo. Thank you all.
My pleasure.
Rosa, the gang.